Hello everybody, and welcome to the May meeting of the DPW Environmental Caucus. Our normal host is not going to be with us today. David Shore is under the weather, so I'm going to be taking over for him temporarily. We're hoping today to have both of the candidates for DPW Chair, Ben Wickler and David Bowen, come and visit us either in person or by phone, and we'll be breaking in to let them do that if they get a chance. In the meantime, our big topic of conversation for today is about preparing for the state convention, which is coming up June 1st and 2nd. We will have our annual meeting at the convention, and we'll also be having an election, as we do every year at the convention. This year, we'll have all three officers, myself, David Shore, and Shannon Talman up for re-election, as well as one board seat that's currently held by Jay Jackson. All caucus members are allowed to participate in that election as long as they are current with their party dues by 5 days before the convention starts. So please, if you haven't paid your dues for this year, if you think your membership is lapsed, please make certain that you check that out with the party and get it current if you want to be on the list to vote. Other than that, I think our other agenda items today are the listening.
Dan,
sure.
Hold up, Dan. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going to go on during our annual meeting and the voting. We have 45 minutes, is that correct, to meet together as a caucus?
That is correct. Oh, and David Bowen just walked in the door, so I'm going to take a break here.
Okay, we'll cover that issue when we're done.
Did they say what time we were in?
Thanks for coming by. Okay. So we are broadcasting live on YouTube right now, so why don't you have a seat at the end of the table here so people can see you. And I will just turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself and tell us about your campaign.
Awesome. Hope all is well. Thank you, Environmental Caucus, for having me. State Representative David Bowen. Been elected for the last 7 years, and for the last 4 years, I've been first vice chair of the Democratic Party, supporting Martha Lanning. We have a lot at stake coming up in front of us, and we have the biggest reminder that we know how to do this work in 2018. So we had unprecedented outcomes that we usually can't turn out in a midterm election, but we were able to get it together. 23,000 volunteer shifts, 1.7 million phone calls, and over 250 neighborhood teams around the state. When it comes down to us sustaining that type of energy, that is where the problem is. That is where we have to close the gap. And it's no wonder that we weren't able to make sure that Lisa Neubauer, someone who has our values at heart, could get over the hump. Especially for folks in the Environmental Caucus, you know that there will be a lot of decisions made on the state Supreme Court where we could have some things go back our way. But, that means we have to earn it. And we would have had the chance to take over the court in 2020, but, we had some difficulties in looking at...
Excuse me, David, I'm having trouble hearing.
Oh, sorry, but hang on one second. Let me try to get the phone a little closer for you.
Technology.
Yeah, technology.
Is that better?
Is that
Yeah,
better?
much better.
Okay. Sorry about that,
Your
guys.
voice does.
And are the folks that are on the phone the same ones that are on YouTube? Or
No.
Got you.
Separate
Two different
channels.
ones. Okay,
Yep.
got you. So I was just saying, when it came to 2018 and ensuring that we had everything in place, we were rolling. But when it came 6 months later, after we got a brand new governor, Mandela Barnes, our lieutenant governor, first African-American lieutenant governor in the state of Wisconsin. When it comes to Josh Call, Sarah Galzewski, Doug LaFollette, all 5 constitutional offices, we would be able to produce that type of energy and those type of outcomes if we get some things in line. I think there are a number of different things that we need to change in our mindset as a party and the folks that are a part of our operations. One would be ending the parachuting of talent throughout the state, and especially as we are talking about rural Wisconsin as well, we are not going to continue the mindset that, there it goes, that we have to only put resources into blue areas of the state or the areas that we believe that we can win. It has to be a full statewide strategy to get everybody on board in all 72 counties and frankly all 600 municipalities. Those are cities, towns, and villages all across the state of Wisconsin. It also means that we have to change the perspective that we are going to keep overlooking the folks that are doing the work on the local level. I believe, and I believe my ticket with Tammy Wood, who is an expert level rural organizer, the chair of the Sauk County Dems, and Alicia Lorta, a 19-year-old college student, UW-Madison, and from Kenosha, she's a youth organizer, has done events around March for Our Lives and ending family separation at the border. We have a chance to move in a direction where we will prioritize folks that are from our communities, organizing our communities. And it doesn't mean that the rumor that David Bowen is going to fire all the staffers is true. What it does mean is that if I am chair, I'm going to have a very direct conversation with folks to say, hey, are you willing to be here for the long haul? Or is this just a stepping stone for you? And if it is, that's fine. Let us help you get an opportunity somewhere else so that we can get folks that want to be here for the long term. I think that is the difference. And I think there is a huge opportunity for us, especially for 2020, when we know that we've seen those state issues pop up and we have a chance to engage folks. When it comes to issues that people are paying attention to, it's clean water. It's making sure that we can actually turn some things around and not just have businesses and the wealthiest corporations put our environment at threat because they want to make ungodly amounts of money, right, while screwing over workers. It means that we are actually going to be upfront, that we are going to invest in green energy. I think those are conversations that we can have on doors outside of election cycles and in election cycles. But right now, the current trend is that we go to communities really late and we say, hey, vote for this person that you never met before. And by the way, this is my first time meeting you two. And we just hope that you get out there. I think the reverse needs to happen. There needs to be very substantive conversations on the doors, on the phones, connecting with people where they are. And the strategy that might work in Milwaukee or Madison is not and does not have to be the same strategy that works in rural Wisconsin. So it means that we have to create new spaces for folks to get engaged. As the folks that already are engaged in the party, and we know the issues, we know the candidates, we know the players, we are the ones that already woke up. We got to think about the folks that every day are living their lives with the threat of not being able to have access to building a legacy like the generation that came before them, of getting their attention and talking about the things that they are seeing unfold right in front of their eyes, right? Their children being exposed to lead in the water, communities that are having high rates of asthma and other ailments because of things that are happening that are threatening our environment. Protecting our wildlife. There are a huge portion of folks in the state of Wisconsin that want to have a conversation about chronic waste disease. Those are important conversations that we can have if we are willing to do the hard work, not just a few weeks before the election cycle. And lastly, I really believe in the ticket that we have because we talk about always we're the future of the party. We are trying to tap into what is the lifeblood of this party to make sure we're sustainable for the next 20, 50, 100 years. That means that we have to have a youth surge in this party of young people that are engaged. It might be events where it's a pizza and politics event and you are talking to young people that want to really break down the things that they are seeing and talk about politics, or it might be a pints and politics event for folks, young professionals over the age of 21, to talk about those things as well. But we're not going to just expect that they're going to come to us. I think that is the mindset that has allowed Donald Trump to walk into the White House, just waiting for folks to wake up on their own to say, I'm going to right the wrongs of what happened in 2016 on my own, and I'm just going to walk to the polls and vote. It does not work that way. Democrats have to go to work. Democrats have to engage their bases. And in 2018, we found out that there were doors we haven't knocked since 2012, right? It is more folks, there are more folks in the state of Wisconsin that agree with us and our values than it is that agree with theirs. So we have the wind at our backs. We just have to really get down to rolling our sleeves up and finding folks that are really focused on doing the work. So thank you so much for the invite. I'm glad to be here. And if there are a few questions, I'll take a couple and then head to Reedsburg, because we're going to Reedsburg, Wisconsin next, and connecting with some folks out there.
I have a question.
So I got a question in the room.
You betcha. So, a number of my colleagues, I'm on both city council and county board, and a number of my colleagues on both of those, and I work with them on a number of other things within the community, they're very progressive.
Sure.
Many of them young people. When I say young people, that's people under 50 when you're my age.
Okay.
Is it more important for them to join the party or to get them to vote for the progressive candidate, whomever that progressive candidate is?
That is a really good question. I think it's a two-pronged approach, right, where we can create new spaces and say, you know, we want to make it welcoming for you to be a part of our party so that people can see themselves reflected. And I think largely a lot of folks have not seen themselves reflected into the party, and they choose to stay out or to engage in activities outside. And it might just be a trust factor where literally what we saw in 2016 is because of all the messages bombarding our members, bombarding voters with, especially those that agree with our values, questioning the credibility of our party, which we did take a huge hit in 2016. And we have to rebuild that. That means we have to meet people where they are. If they find the spark to finally get engaged, that's great, because we have some great spaces for them to be engaged in, whether that's in the Young Dems or whether that's in college Dems or high school Dems. And we also want to expand where we're doing that work too. So tech colleges, we don't reach out to any of them. And a number of high schools, we have a abysmal presence. So we need to grow that. But it might be a grassroots organization that is waking them up to get engaged. And that's great, because we have a chance to create partnerships with all types of grassroots organizations and student efforts and young people efforts that are already existing. And it's just about building bridges. And I think building those bridges will allow more people to come over and naturally. And for folks that would rather stay out, that's fine too, because they will find their place to be engaged in some way, shape, or form. We just should not have a one-size-fits-all approach and say, well, if you don't want to be a member of the party, I can't work with you, I can't talk to you.
Right.
No, these are folks that are connected in our communities that we should count it as engagement and count it as going in the right direction.
It's a real challenge.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growing the amount of young people engaged in the party is one of the most challenging things that I think we have, as we have an older base of folks that are already engaged and trying to expand.
So these folks, the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds were raised in sort of the team philosophy.
Sure.
My age, not so much. You're supposed to be independent and get things done. So how can we use that team? Because they very frequently, when I talk to them, they're very progressive, and I work with them on a lot of progressive things on the local level.
Yeah.
But they don't want to join a party. They don't want to be seen as affiliated. And I think that's not we won't find a solution now, but we have to let them be okay with that, as long as they're going to come along with the progressive agenda.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, supporting their efforts too. That builds credibility as well.
That's
because if you are coming to me saying you have to join my effort, right, and I'm not comfortable with doing that yet, or I haven't seen the progress or the credibility that I'm looking for to join first, I'm going to be standoffish at first. But, if you helped our 50 miles march from Madison to Paul Ryan's district, where I literally witnessed high school students use their spring break, right, to take days of walking miles every day to prove that Paul Ryan it needs to be accountable when it comes to gun violence. And I help to make sure that any support that you need, whether that's resources or whether that's supplies, whether that's helping you spread the word and stuff like that, that will always be remembered by those individuals, and then that builds credibility. It's the times when we go to them and say, well, if you don't join this, then you got it wrong and you're at fault, and that is the wrong attitude to have. So,
Any questions on mine?
Not online. Anything from the phone, real quick? Any? No. Well,
Can you hear me?
yeah. Go ahead, Shannon.
Hello?
we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. David, what is your opinion of the role of caucuses within the party?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the role of our caucus is an important one, right? For members that identify in these groups that want to come together to talk about, especially regional efforts that they could have to keep engaging folks on those issues. I think that's really important. You guys, especially in the Environmental Caucus, right, are the face of Democrats who are, their top concern is the environment. And that has to equate to how do you all come together as the folks that believe that that is the top issue, that you get around to engaging folks all over the state or on social media in a strategic way. I think our caucuses, if they have more support, would be able to do a lot more engagement. And I'm willing to provide that support from the party. But it means that, that we have committed folks that are willing to do the work and do everything necessary so we can keep that ball rolling. And I want to make sure our caucuses are able to succeed. So we have to keep moving in that direction.
Thank you for that. David, I have one last question. Our theme is kind of making sure that Democratic candidates are focusing on the environment and winning on the environment.
Sure.
How is that translated to southeastern Wisconsin? I mean, let's leave lead pipes aside for the moment. Other issues. How do environmental issues? How strong are they in importance in southeastern Wisconsin?
Absolutely. And having clean water through water infrastructure is just one area. But it's also important to recognize Foxconn was sold as you need to screw over the environment in order to create jobs, literally. Yeah. So we need to be able to counter that message with folks that believe in protecting the environment, saying, look, there's a way to prioritize economic growth and supporting ways to be able to expand our economy without destroying our environment, without making concessions that will cost us even more money, resources, and priorities in the future. I think that's really important to southeastern Wisconsin. I think there's a connection that can happen with labor, where there are folks in labor that sometimes get concerned when they hear about the Green New Deal and the lies about where we're going to eliminate planes and trains and automobiles. And then having a real partnership that says there is a way to implement the most cutting edge pieces of green technology and industry and growing jobs for union labor supported jobs at the same time. I think that's really important. Those are the things that come off the top of my head. And then I also think about, as we talk about where people live, right? And having access to stable housing, I see it as an environmental issue. There are folks that are in communities throughout the state, in urban and rural Wisconsin, where housing is a huge issue. And, where you raise your family, where you have a chance to, have to deal with the different environmental impacts and where you live is so important. And a lot of people get it. More people are waking up to even the additives and the things that are happening to our food and things of that nature. So I see a lot of opportunity there.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I'll ask one last question,
Yeah,
and
last
I'll let
question.
you get on with your life.
Yeah.
Reedsburg.
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 Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
So we're Democrats, so we're poor. And it's no question that we're being outspent now and we're being outraised on the money front. How do we close that gap in the future?
Well, in 2016, we had more money than Republicans, ironically. And I do know some folks that are Democrats, and they got a good chunk of change. But I think when it comes to closing the gap, it's about fundraising. It's about lifting up small dollar donors. We cannot only be reliant on having conversations with millionaires and billionaires to fund our party, right? If we are going to build real credibility, especially to those same folks that are paying attention, those young people, those progressives, where literally they are watching us only have conversations with the wealthiest people in this country, we're shooting down our credibility. So we should be reliant on working class people right here in the state of Wisconsin to be a part of the cause and making multiple small dollar donor donations. That, I think, is the same strategy that Beto O'Rourke, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, where they raise millions of dollars in 24 hours. It's about more people putting into the pot in small amounts, rather than just waiting on one person to cut a $10,000, $100,000 check, where those are much more harder to come by. We have a party of hardworking people that are willing to put into the pot, and I think we have to have the credibility that goes along with that and something to believe in. So I think that's how you close the gap. There's other revenue opportunities I think we can pursue, even with our caucuses, around events, around gear, around a number of different new things that we could pursue to get more resources at our helm, and development, right? Training our leaders to be able to raise those dollars in unique and innovative ways.
It's the public radio, public television sort of concept.
Mm-hmm.
Some people feel as though they don't make enough, or they can't contribute enough, so they don't contribute.
Yeah.
Wisconsin Public Television, Wisconsin Public Radio has done a great job of making you feel that the entire existence of Wisconsin Public Radio
That's right.
is on your back, and if you give $5,
That's right.
you have saved it.
Absolutely.
That whole marketing strategy is what we have to think about.
Yeah. And think about the government's backing out of their commitment to public television, and
Right.
say you're on your own, and them saying, okay, well, we are
Our
stakeholders are the people.
We'll succeed anyway,
Yeah.
and with your help. And it's really those $5. And I think I started at $5, and now I'm at $100 a month. So,
Nice.
But that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
If you,
And those are automatic payments, correct?
right, automatic
Yeah.
payments. And if you feel that you can contribute, that you can build something,
Sure.
that you are so essential,
Sure.
maybe you give $5
Yeah.
or $1, whatever it is.
And I want people to pay attention to the fact that we don't always have to be the ones to have as much money. We need enough money when
Right.
it comes to our operations. And in 2014, when I ran for state assembly, four-way primary, 154%, I wasn't the top fundraiser, but I closed the gap substantially from the beginning where one of my candidates was backed by a millionaire and had $20,000 in the first reporting period, while I had less than half of that, right? So I knew I had to do more work to catch up. It was all about me prioritizing the things I needed to do, connecting with the people I needed to as well, to be able to make that happen. You guys are amazing. I'm going to run to Reedsburg, and if you guys need anything, you can visit our website at www.davidfbowen.com, and you can text us at 414-367-7303.
All right, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Honor was mine. Honor was mine.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
You too.
Thanks for being here.
Nice meeting you. Drive carefully.
Absolutely. We got one more fly. I want to get
Deer.
one more.
Watch out for deer.
Watch out for deer.
Yeah.
Yeah. There it is then. That's great.
Thank you.
All right.
Please see it.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
So, I guess $100 a month. There's some Democrats who aren't poor, but
Yeah, no kidding.
so.
I believe in WPT or WPR.
Is Ben anywhere around, or are we going on with our agenda?
I think we're going on with our agenda. Ben had a conflict with another group, and he was going to try to call in, but we haven't heard from him so far to see if he got free to be able to do that. So Shannon, I think you were talking about the election and plans for the convention.
Yeah, the logistics of our meeting. How much time, 45 minutes, we got to do the election, the counting of the ballots, et cetera, in that time, and probably give an update about what on earth the caucuses are doing, have been doing up to this point, correct? How people vote?
Yeah, we are going to be quite pressed, quite pressed.
So, I think that we need to do some serious sort of thinking about time frame for everything. And it would make sense for David to start out with 5 minutes or less, and at least hear from him and then do the voting, because otherwise, how are people even supposed to have something to vote about, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to need to keep things short and sweet. There,
So 15 minutes for our meeting, our total meeting before us.
I think that's probably the best that we're going to be able to do, particularly if there are nominations from the floor for open seats.
Right.
So in the 45-minute time frame, it's the annual meeting, which I'm sure there's some sort of recap of the year, and then also voting, and then everybody's going to scramble out of there.
That is correct, yes.
Yikes.
Yeah, it is tight. And as I've shared with David and Shannon already, there's a problem with the DPW procedure for the voting, where a tie under their rules requires a second vote. But there's clearly no time to do more than one ballot count, and then we're supposed to hold the entire caucus in that room while we count ballots just to make certain there's not a tie. So I've pointed that problem out to the party, and they've given us the thumbs up to flip a coin, or however we would like to cure it. Yeah. So so bone up on that right arm, everyone who wants to run for office, because apparently we're doing it by arm wrestling.
Interesting. Might
Okay.
keep the crowd longer.
Yeah. But yeah,
All right,
so
so we're planning 15 minutes for the annual meeting and then a half an hour for the election.
I think that's reasonable. I'm trying to find right now the exact date and time that we've been given for the annual meeting, which is buried in my
Yeah,
email.
that's helpful. I thought it was 5 o'clock till 5:45.
It very well could have
The name
been.
of the room.
Yeah.
Was it? It's Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so it is indeed on Saturday, 5 to 5:45 in the Harmony Room, which is a great room for our caucus. And, to add to this confusion too, before we start the meeting, we have to identify our voting eligible members. So I'm going to be there set up for that, and I will have a system for people to vote. It has to be by written ballot if there's more than one candidate in an office. So I will have all the materials ready for that going in, and
So, who is up again? David?
it's David, Shannon, me, and Jay Jackson is a
okay.
board member.
Okay.
It sounds like you're doing it that though. Is he running again, Jay?
I have not heard yes or no on that. And there was
All right.
there was another comment that I think you guys kind of,
Yeah, I was just saying, I think you're probably going to need some volunteers, you know, for this, either to check people in, handing out ballots, answering questions. I've seen that at other caucuses. Maybe you already thought of that. I don't know.
oh yeah, we were actually going to be having an officers meeting today to figure out how we were going to handle all that. Unfortunately, David's under the weather, so we need to put that off a little bit. But over the next 2 weeks before the election, we will definitely be reaching out to some people for help.
You can put me down to help with something.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And it's unclear to me because we don't have a detailed agenda for the convention yet, how much time we have before the official start of the meeting to prepare the room. I know that a couple of other places, they have got people coming in back to back. So,
Really?
yeah, it's unclear if we're going to be able to get the room early enough to get in and start checking people in early, or if we're going to have to chase another caucus or some other group out of it first. We're just going to have to.
I have to get up on my soapbox here for just a second, but giving caucuses 45 minutes to do all of these things at the convention is just a big indication of how important the caucuses are to the party.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh yeah, yeah, not a question. And that's why we're organizing this caucus of caucuses meeting, right? It's because we need to make a change in that. Hopefully, we can that way.
Caucuses are important until it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
So I joined late, so what's the caucuses meeting? When is that during the convention as well?
Yeah, it's
That's on our agenda today.
I'm sorry?
It's on our agenda for today to talk about
Okay.
it. Last one.
yeah. So any other comments on the annual meeting, or should we just drive on to the caucus of caucus things?
Do you know when the actual agenda will be out? I mean, is it possible people have to choose between caucuses?
I think it is very possible that people will have to choose between caucuses.
Oh my gosh.
Last year, I believe that there were caucus meetings at the same time. I know that
Right.
our meeting last year overlapped with debate on some of the resolutions,
Yes.
and I had to run out of the meeting to go shepherd my resolution through the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we just have a rough agenda. I don't know when they're going to be putting that out.
Well, it's really hard to run any of these conferences, I'm sure. What a nightmare it must be. But, I mean, the sooner we can get that information out to the counties, to the delegates or whoever else is going, and I'm not even sure who's on the administrative committee right now, it's the Democratic Party, but we should probably light a fire under that committee. So people can plan. So if it's coming from one county, you want to split up and go to different caucuses or
Good point.
administrative meetings or whatever, they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get a new set of officers for the DPW no matter what this year. And they'll be taking over in July. So I think that while we're at the convention, it's not a bad thing to corner those people at every possible opportunity and make certain that they understand that there's grievances like this out there.
Yep. And I don't know if it's just an issue of manpower at the office down there, that they can't get this stuff together sooner. I don't know what the deal is, but I mean, if they need to form a committee of volunteers or something, maybe they could consider that, but
Yeah, it's a tough thing, and I think it's going to be part of the wave of change that coming through.
All right.
So just following
We'll
up.
talk about our listening intro tour.
Yeah, I was about to say, just real quickly, following up on the question about the caucus of caucuses thing, we're just trying to organize the caucuses together to address some of these questions about the roles of the caucuses, caucus power, et cetera. And that's going to be going on at a meeting that we've convened just at the very start of the convention on Saturday amongst the caucus officers. And hopefully we'll be able to use that to build a little bit of strength and effectiveness for all the caucuses, not just ours.
So do you have any idea what time that might be?
It's going to be at 10 on Saturday morning. Shannon and David and I were going to discuss this today, but unfortunately Shannon and David are not in town, and David's not available. I'm thinking we're going to have a very short time for that meeting. It's going to be the first that the group is having. And I was of the opinion that we may want to try to limit the number of people who come into that so that we don't spend just 20 minutes doing introductions at the beginning. I don't know if that's something you want to. I don't want 500 just general caucus members showing up to the thing, and maybe thinking that maybe we would want to try to have the caucuses limit the folks that are coming in to 3 or 5 or something like that, and limit it to board and officers.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and we have to obviously circulate that idea via email to folks, but that's part of just controlling the agenda for that meeting.
And some of that might have to do with what actually turns out to be on the agenda, because there may be things people don't want to miss in lieu of a caucus meeting. So
Yeah,
the agenda would be nice.
yeah. Hopefully we'll have it soon.
Okay.
So Shannon, you know quite a bit more about I think the listening tour and what's been going on than I do. If you want to take an introduction on that.
Yeah, so let me just summarize. One of our strategies we decided was important was to get the word out about us among Democrats, and to do that by trying to go to as many county meetings as we have members that are willing to go to. So, just to introduce ourselves so that people get used to the idea of the environmental process as a potential resource for them. And so I think David did a Racine County trip recently, which was well received, I believe. I am doing Lincoln County on Monday, and I guess at this point it is just strongly encouraged for people to contact, for caucus members to contact, it doesn't have to be officers, caucus members, to contact local Democratic parties and ask if we can get on the agenda. Usually they're happy to have things on the agenda.
Yep.
That's all I got to say about that.
So I guess if somebody wants to take on a county meeting, please just let us know that you're willing and able. Or if you want to set one up yourself, just let us know that you've done so that we don't duplicate efforts. But it's out there. We've got. I'm going to turn to our expert on geography here for the number of counties in Wisconsin. 72? Is
72.
That 72 counties in Wisconsin? I had to verify it.
Are there parties in every single county?
I believe
Is
that
there?
there's
Okay.
a party.
Okay.
I think some of them it's 6 people who get together for pizza once a month.
Okay.
But
Well,
that's not such a bad group to join.
no, that's not, because
so-
they're having pizza.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's plenty of space to operate in out there.
Question, is there a roster for the environmental caucus so we can see like people's names, like
Good question.
region where they
I
live, just so we
believe
can
there
kind of like
is.
team out? 'Cause right now, I'm in Milwaukee. I only know of one other person in that area. I'm wondering if there's more.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
Good
so
question.
I actually maintain that.
Okay.
And there's our current membership is 156.
Okay.
We have an issue about letting that out because of the personal information attached to it.
Sure.
And I have to actually clear this with the party. I've asked them a couple of times about what restrictions we have on disseminating names of people.
Okay.
And I've not yet got an answer.
Okay.
But I will press that again. Obviously, if we could publish that so that people could hook up and network a little bit better,
Yeah.
things would be great. But, you know, it's personally identifiable information, and so we have a privacy issue.
Sure.
But as soon as I get an answer on that, I will get it out.
How obligated are we to privacy?
As an arm of the party, we have to follow the party's privacy policies. And as part of that, we are theoretically not allowed to divulge any information without prior consent.
So theoretically, the party never gives the lists out to anybody?
Yeah, as far as I know, party membership is restricted to party functions only. Now, what qualifies as a party function? That's a good
Yeah.
question. You know, I'm sensitive to this because I work in that field. But I think that, you know, passing out names would be fine. Email addresses is probably fine. Once we get to things like phone numbers, home addresses, that type
No,
of thing.
I don't think, I think you can filter to give a name and an email address,
Yeah.
or a name and a phone number, so that,
Well, I'm even thinking more just like regional. Like,
right,
for example,
where are you? Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying like, hey, I'm in the Milwaukee area. Here's my email address. You know, how many other environmental caucus members are in like Ozaki, Milwaukee, Waukesha, so that we can kind of team up, maybe go meet for coffee, figure out, okay, when's the next, you know, meeting around us, you know, who wants to take this on together,
Yeah,
something real
Because
general.
otherwise, we're just kind of
So, like,
working in a vacuum.
Name, email, and then like general city or even county
Yeah.
that you're in.
You know, one thing on our agenda today is actually boards and committees that we may want to set up.
Mm-hmm.
With your
And-
caucus.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing that I was going to suggest as part of that, and it kind of ties in with what you were just talking about, is that we set up a sort of a chair or responsible person for each congressional district that is in charge of outreach to members in that CD.
That makes sense.
We've got enough folks spread across the state at the board level to do that, and we've got also plenty of folks we can probably bring in as volunteers. Just to engage, like you said, just to send out an email, you know, maybe give a phone call, have a meeting, say, okay, let's figure out what's going on in our CD that we can bring to the caucus or we can get the caucus to help with, and go from there. So maybe that's a good thing for that part of our discussion about committees, is just to have a somebody to deal with outreach from each of the CDs.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because even, you know, like Ben was saying, you know, environmental issues are so specialized to each area. They vary so much, you know, around the state. I think it would be helpful to have kind of like, you know, every once in a while, it doesn't have to be monthly, but just, you know, kind of like meeting of the minds, okay, what's going on in this region of Wisconsin? What could we do to kind of strengthen the caucus's presence here and be kind of strategic about it?
Absolutely. We kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
About trying to, you know, as issues come up and maybe a candidate is working on something, and how can we support that? And we're never going to do it all, but if we've got people strategically placed who can identify those and sort of help us help them.
Right. Well, because they're also going to have connections in the community, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm thinking like the River Revitalization Group
Oh, sure.
in Milwaukee, like, you know, like
I'm
somebody.
having a lot of trouble hearing the conversation right now. It's been-
Sorry, bring that up. Hang on. Try that.
Oh, I was
Hear
just.
you, Dan.
Can you hear me? Okay.
That's better.
Okay.
That's much better.
No, I was just thinking it would be strategic to have, you know, if we can get, you know, caucus members to kind of group, you know, by region, you know, maybe, you know, for example, I'm thinking like Milwaukee, myself, you know, maybe those in Waukesha, Ozaki can get together, you know, maybe not once a month per se, but get together, every once in a while and kind of put our heads together on, okay, let's go to when's the next congressional district around us? What do we want to say when we go there? Who's available to go there? And then put our heads together and say, okay, what are the resources in our communities that we should be working with? I'm thinking in Milwaukee, there's like the river keepers. There's another one, it's called the River Revitalization Project. Things like that. So just, kind of being intentional about banding together with other caucus members in our respective areas, and then, having a strategic plan for what we want to do in our communities. Since, there's going to be environmental issues so specific in each region of Wisconsin, and undoubtedly the caucus members in each region is going to have, a good perspective on what they are and, how to take those on and appeal to the greater congressional district members
So
around
one
them.
thing that might be interesting administratively is if your caucus affiliation is in the van, and you guys know what the van is, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Every county party has access to the van, depending on how good your van is, I guess. But
Well, that's just.
if you could coordinate with your county parties to say we want to have a meeting of our environmental caucus group within our county, that would definitely be a party event, and they should be able to coordinate that. Something to add. I don't know if that's in the data. I should know that, but I don't.
I'm not familiar with this. Are we saying band or van?
Voter.
And the voter
Access,
assessment, whatever they
something.
call it,
It's
the voter access network, whatever they call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the way to search for people, and that would be a really interesting tool to have and maybe expand upon. So, if it already exists.
It does exist, but it depends on how well it's kept.
Yep.
Correct. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
A lot of dead people on
My
that van.
question is, do we have a environmental caucus member from every congressional district?
Absolutely, we do. From every congressional district. We're far short
Okay, good.
from every county, but from every congressional district, we certainly do.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we did or not, so.
Yeah.
'Cause I was down in Iowa County 2 weekends ago. They had a big fundraising event to try to stop that ATC line coming through. And the Iowa County Democrat office down there was completely vacated, so I don't know if they still have a party down there or if they just were there for election purposes. I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows what Iowa County done.
No.
No, I don't know, but a lot of them do just have offices during
Election.
the big old.
Yeah, so, continuing on with the committees and organizational structure for the caucus, we talked in the past about having, for instance, issue committees. I don't know if that's still on our minds here. We had talked in the past about having some specific committees that didn't relate to geography or issues. For instance, candidate outreach, about setting up some folks to do that. What's people's suggestions for things that we might want to go after in that regard?
I thought that's what David was doing. Are we going around and meeting with people in certain regions to try and gather what the key issues are?
No, I was talking more, for instance, about having a few members from the caucus set up a structure for specifically for reaching out to campaigns, for instance, to make certain that we've been pushing this platform resolution through about how every campaign should be making environmental issues part of their messaging.
Right.
How do we enforce that? Well, the party's not going to do it. So if we're going to see actual results from that, we're going to have to be out there getting a hold of those campaigns and making certain they know that this is what Democrats want and trying to help them to accomplish that. And I think we had talked in the past about setting up a committee of caucus members who could start to organize that effort. Is that something we still want to do, or?
I think, yes.
Yeah, I think I think it's important to think about where our focus has been. We've come down pretty clearly on the idea that we do not want to be issue specific as a caucus. We're not going to come out with an opinion on the Green New Deal one way or the other. What we'd rather do is focus on and provide help for the issues that are important in each campaign area. Right. Clean water is something that seems to be pretty big all over the state for various reasons. But it's important that there's going to be a lot of calls for us to come down firmly in favor of various policies or against various policies. And I think we've really made a clear choice to stay with, what we care about is what is going to win that particular Democrat's race. Yes, that's really what our bottom line is. If it's the Green New Deal, great. If it's manure and the groundwater issues, great. But the most important thing for us, our key strategy is to win peace.
Well, I think too, along with that is you may have candidates who are concerned about these issues but are not experts in them or don't have the resources to completely understand them or know where to find, groundwater data from different places that can help them understand and even understand what the groundwater data it means so that they're able to speak intelligently about them and use them as real driving issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, facilitating that access is something we can very easily do without getting into the word picking sides issues.
But some of that's going to come from the candidates themselves just knocking doors. I mean, if you're knocking doors in your district, you're going to find out what the issues are people are concerned about. And I guess you need to do some research kind of on your own too, but I would like us to be helpful, but like you see, we're in so many different regions with so many different issues that some of the stuff's going to have to come from the candidates to find out what issues they're finding in their district are the important ones.
And that's true. I agree with that. But if your daytime job is you're an accountant, you are going
to know where to look.
Right. You don't know where to look, or you maybe you have a natural resources background, or you're a chemist, but you don't know that the jaw counties, Juneau, Adams, and Wood, have tons and copious amounts of data that can help and information that might be similar that could help you support whatever issue you're working on as it relates to groundwater. I think it's about creating the connections and the network and providing the support. A mom with 3 kids and still wants to run for village board because she's mad because her water's contaminated may not have all of the resources she needs to talk assuredly and accurately. So.
Yes, I agree with that. Sorry, this does sound like committee work. This sounds something like a committee from this group to do partially some of the work that David is doing, partially from ripping stuff off from other people that are already doing this good work. I mean, people are already doing this. Like you said, there's a lot of data out there. It's just how do we translate it down to that district, to that area? And it will help them win votes they would normally get. I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
I agree too. My personal feeling on dividing up into committees at the PD level is that really for the next couple of months, we're new, we're small, we're volunteer. I think that our focus for at least the next 2-3 months, because we have a little bit of time before the next election, should be really on getting the word out about us. Meaning going to the various county parties. Make sure we hit at least 2/3 of them before we start thinking, okay, now what's our strategy going to be for actually doing what we said we're going to do? That's just my perspective. I think that's a really good point because
and I'm not necessarily seeing that in my county, but people should be recruiting candidates now. I mean, that
Yes,
should be happening right now.
yes,
And
yes.
so if we can have a voice at those tables to say, yes, this is a good person, let me help with an issue that's important here, and for natural resources, we've got to be in those discussions right away and see how comfortable those candidates are with those discussions. So yeah, I think, I don't know how organized the counties are, but if we can be a little bit more proactive, I think that will be really huge for helping the mission of this caucus.
What you just said gave me a new idea. In addition to us getting the word out at each county, we should be doing some listening and finding out, what's the big issue for this election, this next election going to be here environmentally.
Right.
And we can step back, figure out how we want to, maybe there's 2/3 of the state that is going to have the air quality issue.
Right.
That might mean that we focus our efforts differently than dividing everything up into all the CDs.
Well, that was kind of my point about what we're going to hear from candidates, what they're hearing when they knock the doors.
Yeah.
We have some idea of what the issues are for that particular voting district.
Yeah.
So my question is then how can we get this to happen? How can we get people to go out to counties?
How do we recruit people to do this job?
Well, I think, we have to have an email outreach to the membership here. Obviously the board and the officers can't hit 72 counties.
No.
That number I'm going to get in my mind eventually.
Do not take Wisconsin. You must have not went to Wisconsin elementary schools.
Not a chance. I was born in Hawaii.
Okay, there we go. Otherwise, you would have known 72 counties.
Absolutely. There's 7 in Hawaii. That's all that's all you need. I think that, we should start with an outreach both by email and with the membership at the convention. I always like doing things like that, getting volunteers face to face.
This is great thing to add to the agenda. Yes.
I think you start by asking the question, and you have to frame it. We have 72 counties. We've got, 8 congressional districts?
That's correct, yeah.
And we've got a bunch of members. Once you get the interest, how can we have that outreach and who wants to be on like this rapid response team or whatever you want to call it? From there, I think then you have to sort of frame out sort of the ground rules for how the team works. And so that there's this feedback mechanism between this body, the board, and all of the worker bees going out. Because if there isn't this feedback going back and forth, you could have people off doing a bunch of different things that may not be fully connected back to the board. So I think a little bit of ground rules have to be laid out on what that looks like. It could get a little messy otherwise.
Don't we need a mission too as to what we want them to do?
Well, we already have a mission.
Yeah, I think we want candidates to have some environmental stewardship as part of their platform when they run.
Right.
I think it would be helpful for me because I'm willing to tackle a couple of counties. I'm over here on the lake. I can hit at that connector here. What would be helpful for me though is give me a deadline. When do you want this information back? Because I can do email, I can do a phone call and say, have you guys been talking about environmental issues? What is the thing? Do you have enough information or do you need more? Well, would you, be willing to help us in candidate outreach? But when do we want this done by? I mean, we have the summer coming up.
I think that's a great question. I think we need to do a goal.
Yeah.
Something like, this is not definite, but something like by August, we will have somebody talking about environmental caucus at 2/3 of the counties.
Right. That would be huge. That would be huge.
I think we can do it. We're that big that we could do that.
Yeah.
It takes calling the county chairs and saying, when's your next meeting and can I get on the
Right.
agenda?
Yes. That's kind of what I'm envisioning. And then that information would get back to the caucus leaders to go to the committee and say, do we have enough research on this?
Yeah.
Because you do the research, but then also are these counties actively recruiting candidates and can we get this research back to them?
Yep. All right, so do we like my goal, my proposed goal, or does somebody want to
Yeah.
amend it or nudge it somehow?
And I just point
I
out,
like August because things are just going to get crazier the closer this convention comes. People are going to start losing their minds, and we have to keep them focused on Wisconsin as well.
Yeah, it can give us like a fresh start after the convention.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 2020. We have to be really prepared before,
Yeah.
and have good candidates with good messaging, and yeah.
and just so that everyone knows, because it's kind of buried on the site, but the names, phone numbers, and email for all of the county chairs are actually on the DPW site under the Our Party link. You will find them up there.
So we keep talking about candidates, and it occurred to me that I don't think we're all talking about the same thing, because what kind of candidates are we referring to? Are we talking about town board candidates? Are we talking about village board candidates? City council, county board, legislature? And without sort of understanding, all of them are on different election cycles. So I think knowing that might be important, because just that whole rotation of when you need to start working with different groups is going to be different from location to location.
That was kind of part of my mission point, is who and when and,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, hopefully, I hope, and again, I'm speaking from a county with some dysfunction, hopefully some of your counties have that on their radar, who's running and when. And I'm just going to speak as a candidate. What's always helpful for me is, because nobody expects you to be a professional on every single topic, healthcare, economy. If you have a packet of information, of something, an email, a PDF, that if I have a debate or if I need to put something on my website, that is a position statement that is helpful, and the partner is saying to me, this will help you win a different demographic, whether that's school board or city council or state assembly. Thank you for doing that work. That is extremely helpful. Because like David Bowen was saying, a lot of times what candidates get comes out as nonsense. And it's not really helpful for me in Sheboygan, for example.
No.
I can't run in climate change here. I can't. It's insane, but I can't. But I can run on ozone pollution. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, because you're in a non-attainment area. That makes absolute sense.
Right. So if we can figure out ways to get packets of information to certain regions, and we won't be able to dial down way too close, so we can do some looks at PWD and some other things. Because constituents ask questions, and if you can have a little bit of that information, whether it's a town board, oh my gosh, this would be huge. And I think that's what helps. It's going to take a little bit of work. It's going to be a little bit of talking points for each region, but I think it will help local all the way up to state and federal. So,
Yep, I agree. And that was also kind of part of what I was going with the mission idea to, what do we want to do to get to everybody or to get to who we need to get to?
yeah.
What information do we need to give them?
I mean,
You can't overwhelm anybody with everything, but you can at least give everybody a little something anyway.
Well, what I think is interesting, and maybe someone was saying before, we need to get our name out that the Environmental Caucus is here, because maybe we won't reach everyone, but at least they should know where they can go. So, for example, here in Sheboygan County, we had Dan Cole running for Congress, and he knew nothing about PWD, and he didn't know who to talk to. And you could very Environmental Caucus, whatever you need to know about groundwater, or PWD, or air quality, or
Chronic wasting.
lead in the pipe or
lines.
fracking, whatever you need, that's who you want to talk to. So even if we can't reach 72 counties, if we have a clearinghouse of information, I'm hoping that word will slowly get around. Let's not set the bar too high for ourselves, but
Well, as I said, we don't have to have a whole lot of information, but if everybody just has a few good talking points to get through with, you know what I mean?
right.
So for me, talking points are important as a candidate, but I also like to know source information. For me anyway, I like facts, and so it's not only the talking points, but where can we find the information if we want to dive deeper, and for me, that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like again, a lot of these organizations, the river keepers, legal conservation voters, people have already done this work.
Yep.
And we just need to feel it.
Okay.
Brittany was going to say.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I mean, it's even helpful for me, to know, like, what are the other issues going around the state, because I don't even, I feel like, to be a member of the caucus is valuable to have information about, the whole entire state, not just, okay, like, what's happened in, like, southeast Wisconsin or whatever. But so I would also like to have that kind of information just to kind of round out,
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for all of us to kind of be able to speak, at least touch on,
Absolutely.
Other areas of the state too.
Because the ecosystem is connected.
Yes.
Well, here's something I'd like to recommend for all of us next year, and that is the UW-Madison Nelson Institute Earth Day Conference. You'd be amazed what you learn at the Earth Day Conference.
Well, it's going to be a big one next year. It's the 50th. So,
Yep.
it's a big deal.
I'm just putting that out there. It's always right around Earth Day in April. It's always in Monona Terrace.
Madison.
It's a real pricey day, but you get lunch included, and like I said, some of the information you get out of there is so valuable.
Sorry,
that,
the whole.
these are multiple steps in one stop that you can get the information for.
If you ever
Okay,
get a
do we
chance
have
to.
a kind of a roadmap?
Excellent.
Go forward for a little bit?
Water keepers are also. It's a
All
great conference.
Could you say that again? It didn't quite come
Are
through.
you going to take care of getting out the notice for our meeting,
Absolutely.
for our election?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have to notice not only the membership, but we have to send a notice of the election to the party. Even though the party dictates the place and time that we're going to have the election, we have to send a notice to them telling them that we're going to have an election then.
Well, they seem a little disorganized, so maybe that's good, just
Yeah.
because that's affirmation for them. So,
Right?
yeah.
Just to remind them that
Yeah.
there is in fact an environmental caucus. So,
Sometimes redundant systems have a place, but not in that one.
you wouldn't think so.
No.
But,
No.
well, we'll see. All right, well, it looks like we're not going to hear from Ben Wickler.
No, this was.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Anyone else have anything to address, or should we sign off? We had allocated 15 minutes for him, but he's apparently not going to be able to break free, so.
Yeah, well, we will hear him at the convention, I'm sure, although that's voting day.
Probably multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, then I guess that just say thank you to everyone, and we'll sign off for today.
Before we go, though, what are we going to do for June? Are we going to have a meeting yet in June?
Well,
Good question.
formally, the convention is our June meeting.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
But if we're going to start organizing this, because I don't feel that it's completely organized. I think the ideas are there.
Yeah, but I really think though after the election, whether we get new people or not, we should probably have some kind of meeting just to come together and,
Yes.
decide what we want to do from there.
Yeah, that's the other thing, we don't know who's gonna be in leadership.
Exactly. That's what I was saying, that perhaps we should schedule this at the convention meeting is when we should schedule our next get together.
That's a good idea.
All right then.
Au revoir.
Okay, we'll see you
Thanks
next
to everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye
Bye.
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 Bye.